Next, we need to create the colorful gems that each players are going to collect. What you're going to be doing is making one gem and it will be cloned. There's two ways you can do this. You can go to the sprites and go to the paintbrush and draw yourself a gem. I'm not a very good artist, so what I actually decided to do instead of drawing myself a gem is I am going to upload myself a gem. Now, if you go into Google Classroom, if you go into Glacier Race, you will find a material that has an image of a gem if you don't want to draw it. You can open it up. You'll have to open in a new window, and then you'll be able to download it to your Chromebook. So once it's downloaded, if you go back to your Scratch game, you now can go to the choose a sprite and pick the top choice, which will be upload sprite. Now it's going to look a little different for you because yours will go into that downloads folder and you open up the new sprite. So now you have it. Look how big it is. So we've got to go to costumes. You're going to click the selection tool, select around the whole sprite, and drag the corners in. You want the sprite to be about 40 pixels by 40 pixels. And you can tell how many pixels it is because it says right here at the bottom. So I'm going to keep dragging in a little more. And then I'm going to move it to the center, to that bullseye. A little bigger than I want it. So you want it to be about the size of a snowball. So that looks right. If you want it smaller, once again, like I said, select it and bring it down. So now we have our gem. Now we need to code our gem. So I'm on my gem. I'm on code. Like all the other sprites we've made, we need when I receive setup because that's how it's going to set up. So when it receives a message to setup, what it's going to do is you're going to go to the variables and pick out two of the sets because we're going to set the red car gems to 0 and set the blue car gems to 0. These blocks reset when the score is done and the game starts. We want it to go to the front layer, so we're going to go to looks and go all the way down. We want the gem to go to the front layer, but at first we want it to be hidden, and that's under looks as well. Now we need to tell it what to do when it starts to clone. So I'm going to go to control, and you got to scroll all the way down to the bottom. So when I start to clone, you want to tell it where it's going to appear. So on the XY axis, we want to just go to a certain place in X and a certain place in Y. Now the X place is going to be random because we want it to show up anywhere it wants to across here. So we're going to go to the operators and find pick random, and it's the random in the X. So it's going to be pick random from -200 to +200 because that's what our coordinates. So it's going to appear somewhere across. And Y, we want it to be at 180. So we always want it to be in the same location of up and down. Now, the next thing we want to do is change the color of them. So that's going to be under looks. So go down to the bottom and it's set color effect. And we want it to be random as well, so they're different colors. So we'll go back to the operators and pick random. And the color effects are going to be between -100 and +100. And this block picks the random colors for the gems. And then once it picks the colors, we want it to show up. So we'll go back to looks and go down and find show. Now we need to code it to move because all the things we've had set up and what happens when it's moving. So I need to go to events. Events. And when I receive the message of move, what you're going to need is 3 if statements. So I'm going to go to control and do 3 if-then statements. One's going to be for what happens when it gets touched by a red, 1 blue, and 1 happens if basically it doesn't get touched by either. So what we're going to do is when I receive move, before the if, we need to change Y. What this block's going to do is move the gem with the road so it appears like it's in one spot. So it's going to move along with the road. So I have to go to the motion and find change, not X, but change Y. And I want to change the Y by the road speed. And that's under variables. So that's going to keep gem in the speed with the road, so it's going to look like it's not moving. Now I need my 3 if-then statements. The first one is going to be for touching if it's touching the red car. So I'm going to put that here. While I'm in sensing, I'm going to grab my block for here because I need an if-then statement if it is touching the blue car. So what it's going to do is both of them are going to play a certain sound. So in the sounds, we need the sound called fairy sound. Now you can pick another sound if you want. I'm going to go to sounds, choose a sound, and look for the fairy dust. It's going to make that little noise when you pick up a gem. And you can pick another sound, but pick some sound. So when we want it to start the sound of fairy dust, if a gem is touching the red car, or even if it's touching the blue car. Now, if it's touching the red car, we're going to go to variables, and we want to change 2 different variables. We want to change the red car variable, the red car gems, which is up here by 1, which means it's taking a point. And then we're going to want to change the countdown, because remember that's controlling the game, by 1. So it will show you have less time for playing the game. Now we need to do the same thing for the blue car. But in this case, we're going to change the blue car gem by 1. And you still need to change the countdown by 1 too as well. Now, this one is if no cars touch any of the gems. So what we need to say is we need to go to the operator and get the less than operator. And we need to say if the Y position, which means this way, the up and down. So if I'm going to go to the motion, and I need to go all the way down and say if the Y position is less than 1 minus 175, which is down here, okay, then we need the clone to go away. So it's basically saying if it falls off, we need the clone to go away. So we need to go to controls all the way down to the bottom and delete the clone. So now we have the code for the gem to be ready to go. But notice nothing's happening. I press the green flag. Where's my gem? We have one more thing that we need to do. I know this is a long one. We need to add some controls to the game loop. Remember with the snowball? So we need to change some things here. The easiest thing to do is copy this code and then just change it to reflect what we want to do for the gem. So I'm going to right click and duplicate. And notice I have the same code. What I want to do is we're creating a clone of what now? Now this is the name. I forgot to rename my gem. So I'm going to go over here to my gem and click and get rid of this long weird name for my gem and just call it gem. So now when I'm here, I have the choice of a gem. So I'm going to create the clone of a gem. What this is going to do is pick how many gems are going to be created. Instead of 1 to 200, we want 1 to 20. So this is basically the chance of a new gem is 1 in 20, making the gems 10 times more common than the snowballs. So you got points, more gems appearing than the snowballs. Create a code to make the game stop. So we're going to add another when I receive calculate. And we need an if-then block. What we also need is a greater than block from the operator. So remember, greater than block. So we're going to sensing, because that's where the timer is. So we're basically saying, if the timer is greater than 1, then what do we want it to do? We want it to change the countdown by -1. We have to have, this is how we're getting the countdown clock to move as well and end the game. So I'm going to go to change, and it is the countdown by -1. Then we're going to have it reset the timer. So back to sensing, where we found timer, it's going to reset the timer. So this basically takes the countdown clock down 1. Now, we need another if block, because what it's going to do is play the pop sound in the last 10 seconds to warn the players the time is running out. So it's in the calculate, underneath reset timer, we need less than operator, because we're going to say, when the timer gets less than 10, start playing the pop sound so the players know the game is ending. So I'm going to go back to variables and grab my countdown, and when it's less than 10, I want it to start playing the pop sound. And now we basically have the game going, so let's give it a try. There's a diamond. The little sound played. You can see that the red card gems are changing and going. The gems disappear if they stop at the bottom. Notice no snowball, things have really found. And the game seems to be working. Game seems to be working.